Our Bible word is John 1, the verses 48 to 49. Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" Jesus answered and said to him, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered and said to him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." So yeah, in the Gospel of John, we are just after the prologue, also known as the Logos hymn, where Jesus is introduced as the Logos that became flesh, his truth, his life, etc. And now we come to that portion where there's the first witnesses for Jesus. Because John also testified, in a sense, John is a disciple of Jesus. That's the way he's depicted in John's Gospel. But now we have also the other first disciples that are called by Jesus or come to follow Jesus. So the first is there of Andrew and Peter, there in verses 35 to 42. That is where Andrew, he and another disciple, they are followers of John the Baptist. And then John the Baptist says, Jesus is a Lamb of God. They heard John the Baptist, and then they started following Jesus. And they asked him, "Where are you going?" And then Jesus tells them, "Come and see." That's there in verse 39. So, of course, Andrew went to fetch his brother, Peter. That Jesus also says, "I will call you," or your name will be known as Cephas. And now the pericope of which concerns Philip and Nathaniel, that is from verses 53 to 51. So here are also a few parallels to the former account. And so Jesus, he goes up to Galilee, and it says he found Philip. And Philip, we can say, was one of the 12 disciples, because he's also listed among the 12 there in Matthew 10 and Mark 3 and also Luke 6. And Jesus also instructs him, "Follow me." And now Philip is identified as one from Bethsaida, the place also where Andrew and Simon Peter lived. So it looks like Peter and his brother Andrew, of course, they were fishermen. They were at one stage lived in Bethsaida, which is to the northeast of the Sea of Galilee. But of course, they also associated with Capernaum, which is more to the northwest. But both were like cities somehow involved with fishing. So maybe they were initially from Bethsaida and then later relocated to Capernaum. But Philip is identified as he comes from Bethsaida, a small fishing village on the edge of the Sea of Galilee. Now Philip, he went and he found Nathanael, it says. And Nathanael, there's a question, is he maybe Bartholomew that's mentioned, also listed in the 12? Is he maybe somebody else? There's no certainty about this, because Nathanael is again mentioned in chapter 21, where Jesus appears to the disciples after his resurrection, when they were fishing there at the Sea of Galilee. And there Nathanael is identified as coming from Cana. Now, Cana is a very prominent city in the Gospel of John. That is where Jesus, just after this, he goes to the wedding and he turns water into wine. Also in chapter 4, verses 46, when Jesus was in Judea, he returns back to Cana. So it looks like Cana was a bit like a safe house for Jesus, a place where he can go, be quiet, be safe, and relax for a bit. So Cana receives special prominence, and Nathanael comes from Cana. Nathanael might also be a friend of our author of this gospel, and he might be the source of these traditions of what Jesus did while he was in Galilee. So that's why Nathaniel is also specifically mentioned, because he's an important witness that our author writes about of Jesus' life in Galilee at this early stage. Anyway, Philip tells Nathanael, "We have found him of whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." So Nathanael also said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" It's because Nazareth had no special significance. The Jews there, they were devout, if you look at the archaeological evidence, but it was a very small village. So why would anything special come out of Nazareth? I mean, there's no specific significance, historically speaking, etc., in the life and history of the Jewish people. So this, again, we find this come and see. Jesus told that to Andrew and the fellow disciple, come and see. So that's part of the invitation in the gospel. Come see who Jesus is. And then Jesus saw Nathanael coming, and he says there, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no deceit. Of course, in the background is the story of Jacob. Jacob was also, he's an Israelite. The name Israel he also had the name Israel. And Jacob, of course, he cheated his brother out of the blessing of the firstborn. But yeah, he has an Israelite who there's no deceit at all. And then Nathaniel said to him, how do you know me? Jesus answered, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. So Nathaniel sees here that Jesus is a prophet. Jesus being a prophet is not a big thing in the Gospel of John, but it is here. Jesus has prophetic vision. He saw Nathanael under the fig tree. So where he said before, well, can anything good come from Nazareth? Really? Can this be who Moses wrote about? Jesus being a prophet, there's little evidence or there's a little experience with Jesus convinces him of who Jesus is. So this is Nathaniel's response. Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. So Nathaniel recognizes in Jesus, he has this prophetic vision. He sees beyond the normal. That's why he can now say Jesus is this King of Israel, etc. Also, if you look at the calling of the disciples, or the first disciples, and also John the Baptist's testimony about Jesus, there's also witnesses for Jesus, who Jesus is. In the prologue, we see that Jesus is the Logos that became flesh, but also now there's more witnesses to Jesus. Like John the Baptist, he says that Jesus is the Lamb of God, and also that Jesus is the Son of God. Andrew confesses that Jesus is the Messiah, in other words, the Anointed One, the Christ. Philip, he says Jesus is the one Moses wrote about. Of course, also for the evangelist, if you believe Moses' writings, you should believe in Jesus, because Moses and the law points to Jesus. And also Nathaniel, what he says, Jesus is the Son of God and the King of Israel. So, early on, we have found these important witnesses to Jesus. John the Baptist, but also the first disciples of Jesus, they identify who Jesus is. The Lamb of God, the Son of God, the Messiah, the one Moses wrote about. And also Nathaniel, the Son of God and the King of Israel.